Consumers are feeling a little less pessimistic about the current economy these days, but downright gloomy about the future. The Thomson Reuters University of Michigan's early read on consumer sentiment shows the index edged up slightly in September from August's low figure, but the gauge of consumer expectations hit its lowest level in more than 31 years, which is likely to prompt another pullback in spending this year. Keep an eye on shares of Research in Motion. Shares tumbled more than 20% in early trading Friday on news the BlackBerry maker is losing market share globally at a much faster than expected rate amid growing concerns over its cash flow and ability to meet earnings forecasts. Late Thursday, RIM posted a sharp drop in quarterly profit and said it expects to reach only the low end of its full-year outlook. Its signature product, the BlackBerry, continues to lose customers to Apple's iPhone and devices running on Google's Android software. Citibank customers, get ready to ante up. The bank is raising the fee on its basic checking account by $2 to $10 a month. Those fees will be waived if customers do one direct deposit or online bill payment per month. Many banks are adding fees as the industry adapts to new banking regulations. Jill Bennett.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Friday, September 16th, 2011. I'm Darko. This is my website, ggnonline.com. That's www.ggnonline.com. ddarko2012 is my YouTube channel. That's ddarko2012. Also, on Facebook, we have a Global Government News group you can join. So go in there and check that out. The link will be with all the articles and headlines that I cover in order that they're covered in YouTube's video description. So check that out. Hundreds of links of really informative articles. So I have an email little spot here. You can submit your email and you can receive updates on GGN. I have a news archive. You just press right there and you can get the last 2 years of coverage. So okay, we're going to keep moving here, and we're going to cover the economy in this first section. Also, if you want to vote on this poll, you can as well. I'm going to cover the economy in this first section and follow up with some Big Brother stuff, and then we'll bust into the war of terror, usually with the police state and the war on terror, as they call it, or the reign of terror, as we call it. So in the second video. And then the third video will be eugenics and anything else that I didn't get a chance to get to. Here we have commodities, and right now, when we look at Brent crude, it was down just about 30 cents at $112. Gas oil futures were down $4.25. Heating oil futures down $1.50. And then natural gas, not much change. It says here we're going to move down just straight to metals. Copper down $2.25 at $3.93. Gold is at $1,814. It was up $33, and silver up $1.30 at $40. Not much change in silver in the past month or so. Rents rising at record rate. Rents are rising at their fastest pace for a year, up to a record 713 pounds a month, and that's in the U.S. as well. Inflation hits three-year high of 4.5% after massive hikes in utility bills and soaring clothes CPI at 4.5%. And it goes on here, says its clothing price rose at the highest rate since records began. So, and it says families are being hit by the biggest increase in the price of clothes for more than 3 decades, figures revealed yesterday. We have Bloomberg warns high unemployment rate could lead to widespread rioting. Well, you don't have to be a genius to figure that out. The civil unrest will ensue after the rigged economy collapses, and there's no cheap products on the shelf anymore from China or GMO food. It says here, soon many could be feeling the physical pain of the bad economy. It says here that he warned this morning that there could be widespread mayhem in the streets if Washington lawmakers don't start creating jobs. Okay, so this is what it was. This is kind of like 2008 if they didn't pass the bailout, that there was going to be civil unrest and martial law, right? Remember that? And that was almost, what, almost 3 years ago. So, and so he's trying to promote this bill that Obama is trying to pass, this $447 billion jobs plan. They call it a jobs plan, but it's like everything else. It's not sustainable. You can't spend yourself out of recession. You can't, government can't spend a bunch of money and create jobs in the long run. And you can say, well, they did it in World War II, in the New Deal, and Roosevelt. Well, where are those jobs? They're gone. It's not sustainable. It has to be done privately. And so, like I said this before, you can go in there and check out my latest videos, but just type in Jobs Bill Infrastructure Bank, and you can get some coverage on that because that's really what it's about, a slush fund for infrastructure. Like I said before, it's going to be possibly privatized. It's going to be fixed out with your money, public money, and then privately it's going to be sold off to private companies, privatized, and then they're going to jack up the rates after they promised that they would lower them. So that's what it's all about, guys. It says unemployment claims in U.S. unexpectedly rise to highest level since June. And then we have Euro collapse could lead to war, Polish FinMin. So again, more scaremongering, same thing going on. Well, not the exact same thing, but it is. It's the same fear, scaremongering, and the same rigged economies. It's a stage of financial crisis here in the, quote, Eurozone, and to save the euro, they should just let it die because it's inefficient and not effective, what they did. And it says here that the collapse of the monetary union would lead to the breakup of the European Union as a whole, which I'm sure many of the people living in there would be begging for at this point right now. They'd want it to fall, just like in the U.S. We want the Federal Reserve System and this rigged economy to go away and to fail, and so we can start again with something fresh, something grassroots, something real, and not just this co-opted bullshit agenda that we keep getting shoved down our throats with bailouts and stimuluses and quantitative easing. So it's government policies that create this problem, and then you get talking heads, managers for the Federal Reserve System when they want to steal money from tax slaves to go to the Federal Reserve, and that Timothy Geithner basically going in there and saying they need to take decisive action in response to the Eurozone crisis. So again, you get my point. Economic crisis and dangerous new face as IMF chief. It's kind of weird because now you got Strauss-Kahn out of there. It does really make you wonder if Strauss-Kahn was really not going to be on board for what they're doing right now. Because think about it, this Lagarde, she's just you know what I mean? She's on board fully, and then all of a sudden, Strauss-Kahn just disappears, and all of a sudden we got this euro crisis. So a little coincidental there. America's 10 poorest states, 24/7 Wall Street, and you go in there and you can check that out. We have, and my computer's like my poll doesn't show it. It's not going to show it, so I can't really go through it. It kind of sucks, but you can go in there and check that out. But it says here that poverty rate is 21% in Mississippi. The state also had the lowest median income of $36,000. And also had the worst education system, highest obesity levels, highest unemployment, and lowest rates of health insurance coverage. So, yeah, you can go in there and check that out. I'm going to keep moving here for time's sake. Rising poverty reflects diminishing American dream. And says even Americans have become numbed by the monthly release of perpetually pessimistic unemployment numbers, which they're not even pessimistic, actually. They're not even accurate. They're like 18-20%. They're telling you it's less than 9, so it's not even accurate. It's actually optimistic, if you want to put it that way. Numbers 8, jobless recovery is the ultimate oxymoron and should be jolted by the release of the latest Census Bureau figures on economic state of the nation's household. It says here poverty line in 2010 for a family of 4 is $22,000, 45%, single 25 to 34 year olds living with friends or family and who earn less than $11,000 poverty line for a single person. And 4.6% year-to-year drop in California's median household income, the largest single-year decline on record, and 12% drop in household income of the bottom 10 percentile in the past decade. And where do you think that money is going? Well, it's going to the richest, 1%. So we all know that. It says here, David Rosenberg, it's time to start calling this for what it is, a modern-day depression. So the symbol of democracy, Supercommittee scheduled first closed-door meeting. Members of the Joint Select Committee of the Deficit Reduction will meet on Thursday for breakfast, according to an aide. This will be the first closed-door meeting of the entire group. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really nice group. You have a minority whip in there, and you got Skull and Bones carries. So, yeah, lobbyists seek to penetrate debt committees. So it's the Super Committee tackling U.S. deficit reduction. And a super doesn't mean better, just in case you're just getting into this whole truth. I don't know. It's not a movement. I don't know what you call it, but basically there's a lot of people out there that are trying to smash through all the bullshit, disinfo, misinformation, propaganda. And you might just be joining or getting into that, and you may see this a super committee thinking it's better. Well, it's not. It means less representation for you if you live in a republic or a democracy or you're under some kind of authoritative rule. But it says it's tackling, the purpose of it was tackling U.S. deficit reduction was meant to operate independently and free from outside influence. But Washington's core of high-paid lobbyists has found a way in. And remember, this word, too, bipartisan means one party. It means there's no separation of parties or anything. It's all the same shit. China, and I think what's his face, Ralph Nader said that or something, was quoted saying that recently. China to liquidate U.S. Treasuries, not dollars, so the debt markets have been warned. Key rate seller for China's central bank let it slip. That's Beijing aims to run down its portfolio of U.S. debt as soon as safely as possible. So you go in there and check that out. It says we'd like to buy stakes in Boeing, Intel, and Apple, and maybe we should invest in these types of companies in a proactive way. Once the U.S. Treasury market stabilizes, we can liquidate more of our holdings of Treasuries. It says here, Bank of America foreclosures hikes. It says it sent 200% more foreclosure notices in August compared to the previous month. And it says here, this comes while the bank had previously promised to halt foreclosures all over the U.S. Like I said, they have to do that. Remember, I mentioned this a few months ago. They have to do that because if they don't do that, then people are going to see that they're insolvent, which they already are. But you know what I mean? They have to get them off their books is what I'm getting at. So U.S. fines Bank of America for firing whistleblower. U.S. authorities on Wednesday ordered Bank of America to pay almost $1 million, he says here, to an employee. That's kind of weird. Maybe a typo. To an employee who was fired after exposing fraud at the bank's disgraced mortgage unit, Countrywide Financial. So it's just like the Bank of Scotland with that black guy in there. It's just, Bernie Madoff, whatever. They're going to leave one person to fry. That's the way it works. Leave one guy out to hang. And you never see the real schemers working behind the scenes, don't you? It says here, bank failure. FDIC wants to make sure banks have a contingency plan. So it goes on here. It says the FDIC board voted today to approve rules that would force financial firms to write so-called living wills that map out how to liquidate them in the event of their failure. The rules stem from the chaos surrounding Lehman Brothers' failure, which left its creditors scrambling to recover their money, or their fake fiat currency, funny money. Finance guy in London explains how to order cocaine from a restaurant, talking about kind of like the 80s here in the U.S. under the Reagan era, with a bunch of rich Wall Street guys having a nice access to cocaine. Says here, oh yeah, while the poor blacks were using crack because they couldn't afford cocaine, and then of course they made it a felony, a lot worse, or a crime for them. It says here, and I think they repealed that, China put squeeze on rare earth metals, resulting in compact fluorescent bulb prices to skyrocket. All right, so this is an article I covered last time. U.S. corporations set to profit well from green light bulb production in China with Treasury Department help. So it makes pretty crazy sense, though. But when you find the same government that is forcing us to begin paying $2 to $3 each for a light bulb, is not only involved financially with the deal, but is helping to fund Chinese company that will be making the bulbs. Then we have Washington Post. Obama green jobs cost $5 million each. That's right. And then we move on to this. Obama backs off Social Security cuts and deficit plan. Moving on, exclusive U.S. tax evasion probe turns to Israeli banks. So U.S. pursuit of offshore tax evaders is widening to include Israel, where authorities are scrutinizing 3 Israelis' largest banks over suspicious their Swiss outpost helped American clients evade taxes. So go in there and check that out. Alabama county avoids bankruptcy. And basically, they're going to do it. Bondholders are expected to forgive more than $1 billion in the country's debt. Moving on to Big Brother finger scans for 200 students. So the school has collected the biometric finger vein data for more than 200 students without parental permission over the past 2 weeks. Without parental permission, almost like vaccines in California. A tablet children can grow into. Talking about the leapfrog, trying to get young people hooked on these little iPads and smartphones so they could be tracked and monitored. Fulham FC introduces tablet CCTVs. Images of troublemakers can be quickly circulated to police and Fulham's own crowd control team. In the future, technology may incorporate facial recognition linked to a database of known hooligans. Then cell phone study alarming, talking about mobile phones increasing among children. Well, of course, they're trying to get them in their hands. Safety board recommends trucker cell phone ban, but take away the big bad truckers' cell phones. It says here, Sprint app disables texts and calls while driving. Then BlackBerry would close UK service if unrest was ordered. Congress could make Facebooking at work a felony. The Supreme Court to rule on the age of Big Brother surveillance. Go in there and check that out. DHS, new airport security policy for kids under 13. So they're going to grope them less. And TSA agents, cops arrested in drug trafficking case. NFL wants pat-downs at all stadiums. And next will come the body scanners for those who want to opt out. Thank you.